Welcome back to episode 3 of our HMO special. This week we are going to look behind the numbers of our HMO project in Swinton.
Crunch the numbers!
Crunch. Okay. Basically all the costs that are involved in the project, and we're going to see what it comes out as. Okay, so you remember in episode 1 we discussed the bidding war that took place, and in the end we purchased the 3-bed semi-detached property on Station Road in Swinton for £195,500. Okay, so that was basically our starting point. From then you had to add in stamp duty and legal fees, and that took you to £203,466. And that basically gets you a rundown property that
in an alright.
was alright.
It's okay. It's not rough.
Was livable, but we certainly weren't going to start putting
livable
just about livable, I'd say.
Well,
not for an HMO.
Bit grubby.
Bit grubby, but you could arguably have lived in there. But obviously that wasn't our intentions. So quite a lot to begin with. That purchase was in cash, using basically mostly investor money, and everything else we did was also in cash as well. So no bridging fees or mortgage fees or anything like that at this point. The next cost, I'm going to do it kind of in broadly in order of kind of how it's come in, not in value, but in sort of chronological order. We made an application for planning permission. Ronnie touched on this briefly last week, so if you do want to discuss hear more about floor plans and Ronnie's creative ideas, then please do listen to last week if you've not already done so. We made an application to turn this 3-bed semi-detached property into an 8-bed property.
For those who are listening last week and thinking, where does these extra rooms go? One was going to be in the basement, and we wanted to do a front dormer on the loft, so we could have fit 2 in the loft.
As well as a back dormer, which we have done. So that left us with planning permission for 8 bedrooms. Now, they said that the basement, they didn't fancy that being a room, essentially light issues.
But we have had basements past as rooms before, so you just never know. Yeah.
And also they said they weren't happy with the front dormer, just because I think basically the look of the property compared to the other properties on the street. So we were left with 6. We went with a loft conversion as opposed to doing the basement, essentially because we thought it would be a nicer layout, but
nicer room.
But obviously that did come at a greater cost than renovating the basement would have done.
However, basements are prone to causing issues. You can damp proof it all you like, but damp has a way of showing even after damp proofing. So
we thought we'd leave the basement in sort of the rotten place it is now, and room for the boiler.
Rotten state, not
place.
So you said rotten place, so the basement's always
it's not going to move
at the bottom of a house.
Okay, so we're left with those costs of $203,466 plus the application for the architect and the application for the planning permission of $1,240, and then we move on to the building stage, which is very expensive. So obviously we've worked with builders before. We happen to have a chosen sort of builder of preference for this kind of project, but it's not cheap, and it comes out at hopefully it will come out at roughly £92,169 to be precise. Now it possibly will be a bit more. We're only sort of halfway through that project. There's bound to be sort of 1 or 2 extras. There's already been extras to this which aren't directly going to the builder, but one of them is £3,000 because the piping wasn't sufficient for the property. We're having 6 ensuite bedrooms. That needs a specialist boiler, but it also kind of needs sort of the right piping going into the property, because otherwise you'd be kind of getting a little trickle when you have a shower, and that will lead to some unhappy tenants. So we only discovered that kind of mid-build.
Our previous properties have had the sufficient piping.
No one's ever mentioned this in the past. I think it's quite rare that a property doesn't have this. But it's not rare in new builds when you're adding essentially lots of properties into one space. But I think it is fairly rare in terms of an existing build that they don't have the capacity for this level of usage. So that was another $3,000. It was going to be $5,000, but luckily I've got
himself a bargain.
Some contacts in the industry who helped us out with a supplier who used to work for United Utilities, so knows the ropes a lot more. You're going to probably be wondering what the £92,000 kind of gets you. Do you want to briefly talk about just the cost of the bill, what we're actually doing, and why it's so much?
What we do when we do HMOs, we buy grubby houses because basically you're taking them. It's called back to brick when you strip away everything that's basically there. We've left a few walls up. So when I'm viewing a property for an HMO, I don't really care about the boiler. I don't really care about the state of the electrics because you're moving everything anyway, because you're making bedrooms in places that weren't bedrooms previously. You're making en suites everywhere, so there's so much piping. So what we're paying for is
it's the cost. So you mentioned the boiler. So the boiler alone.
You mentioned the boiler.
You just said it just then. The boiler alone is $3,000.
It's a massive
cylinder, 30-litre cylinder, I think. 30 litre cylinder, and it's huge. Then you've got added onto that, you've got the cost of 6 ensuite rooms before you've begun. Now they obviously all need their own toilet, their own.
So that's just shy of $5,000, is it? We've paid
for each ensuite. It was $5,000 for just the units. But then obviously you've got the work itself to actually create the ensuite, the extra doors, all the plumbing. So you kind of even just so people can go to the toilet and have a shower, you're probably, I don't know, maybe $20,000 in, I would have thought. It's three. They always said $3,000 a toilet was kind of roughly where you are. So you're 18 plus your boiler for $3,000. So you were there or thereabouts at $20,000 just for your ensuites in a 6-bed property. So already hopefully you can see that the costs go up. You need plastering usually for most of the house.
Plastering takes weeks. It's weeks of
crazy.
Work. I don't know why they've not got machines at that yet.
I mean, it's mad.
If you're thinking of doing inventions, invent one.
Painting is the same. Obviously, you need to do all the strip out before you've kind of already begun. That takes at least sort of a week. Mainly just manual labour, but you kind of got to strip everything out. You've got removing all the removing all the door frames, electrics.
Oh yeah, because every door needs to be replaced with a fire door. Fire doors are expensive. How much is a fire door? I think just over 100.
Yeah, I was going to say 200.
Cheaper end.
Okay.
I might be wrong.
But then obviously installing it as well. You need. I've got.
And then with the fire door, then you've got the excess stuff that comes with the fire door, which latches and anyway.
Yeah, you've got obviously 6 new doors as well as for the ensuites. And you've got the stud walls to go for the ensuites. Usually, you've got aqua panels which we put in the
It's a cheaper alternative to tiling is aqua panels. It's a massive plastic sheet. You can get different designs. And you save money on not so much the panels themselves, but the installation's a lot quicker because tiling takes time to lay each tile. They charge, our builder charges us £35 a square metre to put the tile, for the tiler, basically. So
we've got roof repairs in this particular project. Not huge, but they still added up. We had stitching on one of the bricks outside. Brick stitching near the window.
No one's going to know what any of this means because you...
No, but hopefully some of them have seen the video that we put on at the start. But even if they haven't, you kind of see where all these costs kind of, basically escalate. What else have we got? You've got drainage. You've got installation of a new cycle rack outside. It's very near a station. So there's no room. There's no parking. But you still always need to install a cycle rack.
If you've got a yard,
you've got to tie it up the yard. The back gate is what is it? What's going on in the back garden? Long story, but
it's personal to each property. There's going to be uplift everywhere.
We needed a new back door. We needed obviously a full rewire, as Ronnie mentioned before. TV sockets need to be put in. Integrated fire alarm system. Spotlights in the kitchen. Emergency lighting. So basically a whole
Yeah, in the
massive
hallway,
list.
you have to put emergency lighting. I don't know why.
No, I think it's
basically
health and safety.
You don't click a switch; it's a sensor light. So.
And then you've got new radiators and installation of the kitchen. Now, what that amount of 92,000 odd didn't include was the new kitchen. So that's about 5,000-6,000 for the kind of standard that we're going for. Flooring,
blinds.
Flooring's up to about $3,000. Blinds about 1,500. Then you've got sofas, TV, kettle, you name it for the kitchen.
The kitchen's fully kitted out
with all
cutlery,
the utensils.
crockery.
And so you've got all the flooring. You got we don't put TVs in. But you do put in a desk.
We put a
TV into
the communal area,
yeah,
but just
but
a
not into
TV
the
socket
rooms.
in the bedrooms.
You've got it sounds like the generation game, but you've kind of got wardrobe.
Well,
bed.
I kit the bedrooms out with a wardrobe, chest of drawers, bedside table, bed, double bed if it fits it, 4-foot bed if it doesn't, mattress,
a lot,
few shelves.
So basically, all of
desk
that
chair
comes in at about 23,000 on top of your 92,000 you've already given.
And your bathrooms, suites.
Yeah, so that was what I said before. So you are, as well as all of that, at the end of the project, you've then got a broker fee and / mortgage product fee, because we're going to be refinancing. We'll talk a bit more about the refinancing next week when we work out sort of the end value and what we're doing, why we're doing all of this. But that works out about £1,000. Then you need an license application fee. You need to actually have an HMO license for where it's a property of this sort of nature. That's another about £1,000. So all in, once you've added on all of that, you've got a total cost of £326,469.
It's a lot of money.
A lot of money. Okay, so you've got to be. The next question, obviously, is, well, what value are you creating from that? If you're spending £326,000, what you're getting as a result of that?
Pennies.
There's two answers really, and the first answer is
answer. I know the first answer.
You don't think you do?
No, ask me. Don't say you don't think I do.
Well, the first question, you don't even know what the question is.
What's the value?
The question is what would someone pay for it?
Okay, yeah, that is the answer I was thinking.
Okay, what were you going to say?
We don't know.
No, it's not at all. No, of course we know. So what the question really is what would someone pay for it? Now, actually, I've got a very good idea, because about 3 years ago, so it's about a year, 2.5 years ago.
I don't know.
After we'd done up our first HMO, now that was in Earlham, this is in a better area, we got quite a few people who contacted me saying they wanted to buy it. Now, you've got to remember the market's moved on as a whole quite a lot since then. But they were, at that time, our property got valued for $245,000 in Earlham, which was actually a very generous valuation. But someone was willing to pay $300,000 to buy it. Okay, now those discussions sort of never got anywhere. But basically, the numbers that have been discussed were in and around the £300,000 mark. So a huge premium on what the value from the bank had been willing to give us a mortgage for. So when I was saying there's two different answers. The actual going value for the property, if we were to sell it to an investor with 6 rooms, all en suite, all rented, would probably, I would say, at least 325,000. As in, I think we'd get at least our money back and probably a premium on top of that. It's very difficult to get a property of this nature that's going to cash flow. We'll talk about cash flow again next week. But actually, the real value on it, I'd say, is a fair bit higher than 325,000. I'd say you'd make a good chunk. And that's obvious in a way, because otherwise, why would you put yourself through all that if you're ever going to do all this for a profit? But you probably won't get a huge profit. Okay, so you might, someone might come along and bid 350, maybe even tops, I don't know, 375. I mean, I don't know the upper limits, but it's still not worth all that time that we've put in. If you talk about the man hours or woman hours, it's probably not worth that amount of profit. So there has to be another reason, and we'll discuss sort of the cash flow next week.
I think it is worth that kind of profit.
Well, if you're getting it at 375, maybe, but certainly not if you're going to make 330 or 340. You know, it's just not worth our time and hassle. It's very risky as well, because things could have gone, horribly wrong throughout. But what I would say is that the bank don't even put anywhere near that kind of valuation on. So just like in our first property in Earlham, the bank said 245 when investors were saying at least 300. Here we're probably at, I don't know, I'm going for 275. Hopefully no surveyors are listening that come in.
Value it as a house. They don't really care so much
it's more
the cash
that
flow.
they're just very conservative, so they actually are aware of the cash flow.
They don't care about it though.
No, they definitely care. It's definitely part of their equations, because it's all on their list. But what they don't want to do is to basically be caught out by the market. So they are, by the very nature, very conservative. And so even if they know that someone might come along, or even if they know that an HMO sold in the area last year for a similar amount, they're unlikely just to give that same figure. They will look at what houses are in that area, and they will probably just still say, oh, because of the virus, it's 10% less, or something along those lines. So I think we might get a valuation of roughly about 275,000. Hopefully it's a lot more. It might equally be less. The range with these things are crazy.
That was my first answer.
Okay, and we'll probably
We don't know.
And we'll probably do another podcast on this at another point, just so you can kind of see what kind of range you could get. But let's just say 275. So you spent 326. You're only going to get a valuation of 275. You must be bonkers to do this, do you think?
Bonkers.
No. Actually, it's very sensible. And tune in next week, because we're going to discuss the revenue from all of this.
Tune in next week to see why we're not crazy.
And actually why it's still an absolutely fantastic investment, especially for the long term. But we're going to talk about when we're going to basically get our money back from all of this, and when we're going to make money, which is the whole point of doing it in the first place. So we will see you then, but for now,
the content of this podcast is for general information purposes and not a recommendation to act. Please contact us or an independent financial advisor if you would like to discuss further. Contact at gary.financialfreeman@gmail.com.
bye for now.
Bye.